Okay, guys. So nice individuals. The first one says looking to power up a bunch of location landing pages on a money site, but have a limited link building budget. Is it okay to link multiple location pages in a single press release, 4 to 6? No, don't do that. Number one, because you shouldn't really have more than 2 at max 3 external links in any one press release. Number one. Number two, because otherwise you really dilute the effectiveness of any of those links. And the problem with trying to use a single press release for multiple locations is you can also cause somewhat to a degree like location ambiguity, ambiguate location, right? Ambiguity, that's the word I was trying to say. It's a very difficult word to pronounce. Anyway, not because think about like with I use Press Advantage. Okay. So Press Advantage, you have each location has its own organization page, its own name, address, and phone number, its own Google map embedded into the organization. And when you publish a press release within that organization, it should be specific to that location. Does that make sense? Because one of the, and you might not be using Press Advantage, you might be using another service provider, but I'm going to relate this question back to the press release service I use, which is Press Advantage. Okay. So every press release that I publish is in a specific organization, which is a single location. Does that make sense? Sure, you could have like a brand organization that does not have NAP details and a Google map included and all of that. You could certainly do that. But it's definitely more effective if you have it under a specific location organization. Like, in other words, you can have, so I've got many multiple location projects. In other words, a brand that has multiple Google business locations. So each Google business location has its own Press Advantage organization page. Oftentimes that'll just be the brand name plus the city name appended to it, right? So Joe's Tree Service, Fairfax, Joe's Tree Service, Fredericksburg, something like that, right? And that's how you get, each organization page will have its own slug or permalink, whatever you want to call it, with the location modifier appended to it. Otherwise, you would end up with, like, if you had like 5 Joe's Tree Service locations and each one was just Joe's Tree Service, then it would be Joe's Tree Service for the first location, then Joe's Tree Service -2, then -3, -4, -5, etc. I don't like that. So even if the company name does not include a city modifier, I will still append that to Press Advantage as I create additional organization pages so that it's a unique URL that is relevant instead of having that -2, -3, etc. And plus it's a little bit of an SEO bump, right? So what I'm saying is each press release would get published within its own specific organization. And with that option, you can embed the Google map as part of it. A lot of the press release pickups, right? The distribution points, the publications where they get distributed and republished to, will also allow the map embed. So if you're doing like 4 or 5, which again is too many links in one press release anyways, but if you were even going to try to hit 3 different locations with one press release, how would you do that unless you were doing it on kind of like a brand level without location specifics? And that would be less effective still, right? And then you'd be diluting it across multiple locations and you could potentially cause some ambiguation. So don't recommend that. Yeah, as I mentioned, guys, I just talked about this, I think last week too. My strategy for press releases is you take a Google business post, you link with the Google business, whatever page it is or post that you want to push on your money site. Okay, whatever page or post that you want to push on your money site, you summarize that page or the content of that page or post, you summarize it into a Google business post, which is a roughly 225 words maximum. It's 100 or 1,500 characters max, which roughly 225 words. So between 200 to 225 words. So you summarize whatever page it is you want to push into a Google business post, and then you use the CTA button, the call to action button, either learn more or book. Those are the 2 options that will allow a URL to be inserted into the CTA button. You put the target page URL into that CTA button, then you publish the post. You wait for it to publish on the Google business website. It can take sometimes hours now. It used to be just a matter of like no more than 10 minutes. Sometimes it's taken hours for it to now appear on the Google business website. But once it does, you pull that Google post URL out, which is an inner page URL of the Google business website. It's not the share URL. It's not that little short redirect URL that Google gives you if you're looking at it from within the SERPs or from within So the search engine results page or from within Google Maps. If you try to click on a Google post from the search results or in Google Maps and click the share button, it's going to give you a share URL. Do not use that URL. You want to use the inner page URL of the Google Business website. So you have to wait till it appears on the Google Business site. As I said, sometimes it can take hours now before it appears. And then you want to click into that post and then copy that link out of the address bar. That's the inner page of the Google Business website. That now is your target URL for press release, right? So you link to that target URL with whatever keywords you want. You can go with target keywords, right? Or target anchors. That is a keyword plus location modifier, or another term for that would be an exact match anchor, right? An exact match keyword anchor. So you can link to that because now you're using the Google Business website as a buffer, which is a Google property. So you can hit that Google Business post with exact match keyword anchors or target anchors, and it's going to hit that Google Business post and it's going to flow through that CTA button to your target, ultimately your target asset that you wanted to push on your money site. But it's been buffered through a Google site, number one. And number two, it's a generic anchor or a miscellaneous anchor because it's either going to be learn more or book, whatever the button it is that you select, that is the anchor text. Does that make sense? So you can push a lot of relevance to the Google Business post. The Google Business post filters any potential negatives and then pushes link equity to your target asset. And then the second URL that I would put in the press release, which I typically do, is either going to be the Maps share URL for that same location, or it's going to be a review share URL from the Google Maps listing. Those are all 302 redirect URLs. So it's not about pushing link equity. It's about sending the right signals to Google Maps. And then, so that's, again, Google expects to see links built to the share URL. And it also expects to see, well, when there's click activity on a share URL, that is a good signal for ranking in Maps. So that's part of the reason I do it is because if I'm going to run CTR manipulation traffic or referral traffic through the press release, I want them clicking, I want the bots clicking on that map share URL or the review share URL, because again, that is an engagement signal directly in Google Maps. So it's very powerful. So that's exactly how I do it. Now, if I'm doing a press release silo, then there may be a third link. It's either going to be just the Google Business post URL, the target URL that I've already mentioned, and then a link to the previous press release if I'm doing a silo, or sometimes I'll still have all three press, or I'll end up having three links, one to the Google Business post, one to the previous press release in the silo, and then also another to the share URL or the review share URL. Does that make sense? But a lot of the times with press release silos, I will reduce it down to just two links, which will be to whatever target or I want to hit. Or in some cases, if I'm doing like what's called a mono silo, which is where like you have subsequent press releases in the silo that all you want to do is push link equity upstream to the top of silo post. And that's where your one target URL is, like the one that you want to push the equity to. That's another kind of strategy for that too. But that's getting in more into like, more specific local PR pro strategies, which we have a training course for that. If you want to learn how to use press releases properly for local SEO, that's a good course for that. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to tell you, no, don't do that. Right? Don't do that. You want to be more specific with your press releases, or else you completely destroy their effectiveness. They're just not going to be effective. Okay. And in fact, you can actually cause harm to your Google Business assets if you're trying to hit too many of them from one source, if that makes sense.